in November of that year, the state championship game
made
between
these
Livonia
horrific killings
Stevenson
back
and
in the
Dakota.
70s.
And sitting right in front of me was Attorney General Mike Cox. So at halftime, I decided, I'm going to ask him a question about the Oakland County child killings. And I thought to myself, there's no way.
The idea that he certainly
did the killings.
he could have been the killer. And
Just looking at
from everything
him,
I've
his
heard,
background,
he said it in so many words, and he was the killer, based on my experience from what I've read. Made these horrific killings back in the 70s.
I definitely think that Helen has an interesting story. Says, I'm kind of torn whether or not all of it's true or not. I'm like 50-50 on it, but boy, she really tells an intriguing story.
Was very interested in the location of the garage in the back, where you drive the car on the side and then curves around into the underneath, so a person could come and go without being seen.
Hi, my name is Greg. I'm from Livonia, Michigan, and I have some things to say about the Oakland County child killer case. The reason why I got involved with the Oakland County child killer case was I remember watching, I believe it was in 2006 maybe, on TV, that there was an arrest of some old pedophiles, one being Ted Lamborghini, and I was watching the television news, and it kind of struck me funny that Ted Lamborghini was being possibly accused of these crimes. And I thought to myself, there's no way that this guy did the killings. Absolutely no way. Just looking at him and knowing his background, etc., I just didn't think he was a very good suspect. So what I did was I decided to surf on the internet to see if there's anything out there about the Oakland County child killing case. And I ran across an article from somebody named Todd Matthews, who had a site on criminal justice from GeoCities, I believe it was his website. And he had an article written by a person named Helen Dagner. And I read the article with great interest. The article talked about how Helen had met John Hastings up in Alpena, and how John had pretty much revealed to her that he knew all about the killings, and kind of gave Helen the idea that he could have been the killer. And from everything I've heard, he said it in so many words, and he was the killer, based on my experience from what I've read, etc. And I exchanged email. I decided, first of all, I sent an email to Todd Matthews and asked him, what do you think of Helen Dagner? Is she on the up and up, this story? And Todd responded to me saying, I definitely think that Helen has an interesting story. He says, I'm kind of torn whether or not all of it's true or not. I'm like 50-50 on it, but boy, she really tells an intriguing story. So your guess is as good as mine whether or not her information is accurate. So upon reading the article, I decided that I would do a little investigation of my own. So I actually emailed Helen and asked her some information regarding the article that I had read, some details. And she provided me some details with a high school that Hastings had attended, and coincidentally, I had attended the same high school. She didn't tell me the name of the person. At this point in time, I did not know the name of the person, except that he was John. But Helen had given me a clue that his name was the barrel of a gun, and I looked it up, and sure enough, it was John Hastings. And she actually confirmed that with me about the same day, actually. So I did a little investigation of John Hastings, found some pictures in the yearbooks, etc. And with great interest, I started to wonder, well, I wonder if I had any friends that knew of the Hastings. And I did have some acquaintances that knew the family, but a long time ago, back in the 60s. You know, they kind of lost track of each other in the 70s, the acquaintances that I had that knew Hastings from grade school, the Hastings family from grade school, etc. So anyway, what I did was I exchanged a lot of emails with Helen. I did a lot of investigation on my own, found some articles that were of interest and whatever, and I decided that, I by this time in November of 2007, I had thought that, I really think this is the guy. So coincidentally, I happened to go to a high school football game in November of that year, a state championship game between Livonia Stevenson and Dakota. And sitting right in front of me was Attorney General Mike Cox. So at halftime, I decided, I'm going to ask him a question about the Oakland County child killings. He was standing there with another guy. Their kids had gone off to the concession stand. So I asked Mike if he knew Helen Dagner. He said no. And if he had heard of John Hastings. And his answer to me was basically, am I supposed to? So anyway, I told him that I thought that, I had some good information about this guy, and I wanted to know if he could certainly be the man that the guy that made these horrific killings back in the 70s. So he said he'd have somebody on his staff contact me, which he did. But it was about 4 or 5 months later before a meeting actually took place between myself and a gentleman from the Michigan State Police, a lieutenant. And I met with him and gave him my feelings via voice recorder, and told him what I knew based on what Helen had told me and also the research I had done. And we took a drive up into Birmingham, it's now the Bloomfield Hills area, and went on the street where John lived. We also looked at the water tower where another acquaintance had died back when I was in high school, and John was a senior. A young man by the name of Anthony Mitchell supposedly fell off a water tower, and died right by John's house at 15 and Lasser. Now, Helen gave me a lot of information about that water tower fall by young Anthony Mitchell, who was like 14 at the time. I found it quite ironic that the potential Oakland County child killer, the person that I thought lived on the same street and apparently was on the water tower with Anthony Mitchell at the same time, along with younger brother Tom Hastings. And I think there was one other individual, I'm not sure. But it's kind of ironic that he fell off the water tower and a policeman came by the next day and found the boy. Nobody had called the police from the Hastings family. So that kind of struck me as kind of funny that, geez, how ironic that a young child would fall off a water tower, also be, a potential murderer. Went by Hastings' house, the lieutenant and myself, and he had a rental house next door. The family had a rental house. And the lieutenant was very interested in the location of the garage in the back where you drive the car on the side and then curves around into the underneath. So a person could come and go without being seen, pretty much. So he was real interested in that. He's also real interested in the water tower. But he ended the pretty much the discussion that they needed more evidence, and besides speculation. He said I'm not saying he's not a suspect. I'm not saying he is a suspect. I'm just saying that we really need evidence in this case. Hardcore evidence is what he said. So anyway, I did send him. I created a book